So that's Dave. My name's Rayleigh, and I'm actually the lead resuscitation training officer for Together NHS Foundation Trust in Gloucestershire, and I'm a paramedic. I worked at Gloucester Ambulance Station. I think I joined about 1993, and I only let my SWAST contract go last year. So yeah, I'm kind of focused on my day job. But yeah, so we met 3 years ago now. And when we met, Dave mentioned to me that he had this condition called hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. It was found on a routine medical with work. Yeah. No symptoms, no nothing. Obviously, you know, like you do, you Google. And I know a little bit about it before anyway, but the chances of him ever having a cardiac arrest, less than 1%. Yeah, we used to laugh and joke. He said, well, why do you think I met you? Why do you think we're going out? And my opinion was, well, if you die in front of me, don't expect me to save you. So it was a bit of a standing joke between us. But yeah, no symptoms, no nothing really. In 2016, Dave was contacted by Bristol Heart Institute to ask him if he wanted to join a research trial between them, and we think it was an American university. Which one, but, yeah. They don't know enough about it, and it kind of catches too many people too young, really. So we signed up, we went down to the Heart Institute, loads of scans, loads of tests, and they ring you up every 6 months. Anything happen? No, put the phone down. The day this happened, the week beforehand, was the follow-up. So they'd actually rung in the week beforehand. Anything happen? No, put the phone down. So it was a Saturday night we went out with my brother. We went to a Greek restaurant in Gloucester down the docks, had a lovely night, drunk a little bit, ate a little bit. We got home about 2:30 in the morning, and then it all kind of kicked off. So you might want to turn the lights down actually, because it's going to be a bit blurry. So all I've done is I put some slides together because it's probably easier to show you there than it is for me to talk, and I have got the 999 call on here. So you are going to hear it. It lasts for about 8 minutes. I'm going to warn you now. It is a bit emotive. Dave hasn't actually listened to the 999 call. I've listened to it a couple of times. I've listened to it a couple of times, but I thought I would put some slides together, show you our life, put the video, well, put the call there, and obviously if you've got questions after, then we can answer them. So there you go. Dave likes to travel. A little bit about Dave. His job takes him all around Europe. He tends to be away Monday to Friday. The Friday before he'd been in Croatia. The Monday after he was due to be in Paris. So he's actually only home at weekends anyway. So kind of like lucky.
It happened on a Sunday morning. Still to have.
Since the event, this car here has had to go back because Dave can't drive now.
That's the biggest problem about the whole thing. I had to sell my brand new S4.
So the car's gone back. You can't drive for 6 months after you have a subcutaneous ICD inserted. A little bit about us. We like to travel. We travel all over. And I've got a couple of little girls who weren't there that day. They were due to come home because it was Mother's Day, but they hadn't come home. So it was just us at home alone.
Emergency. Ambulance service. Is the patient breathing normally?
No.
Are they awake?
No, hold on a minute. Okay. No.
Okay, can he be woken?
No, we can't arrest.
Is there any serious bleeding?
No.
Okay. And what was the main reason for the emergency call?
He's not breathing properly. He started breathing really funny. It won't be like, hold on a minute.
Okay. What's the full address of the emergency? Okay. And which town or city is that in?
Gloucester.
Okay. And what was the telephone number you're calling on?
He stopped breathing.
Okay. Try and stay nice and calm for me. Tell me exactly what's happened.
And I woke up in my sleep. He was making a funny noise. I couldn't wake him up. Now he's not breathing.
Okay, try and stay nice and calm for me. How old is he?
43.
43, okay. Is he awake?
No, he's not.
Is he breathing?
No, he's not.
Just confirm that full address for me, teacher. I do have that right. And which town or city?
That's Gloucester.
Okay, so I'm organising that help for you now. Stay on the line.
Okay.
Okay, if there is a defibrillator available, send someone to get it now, in case we need it. Sorry?
No, there's no music. I'm at home.
No, that's fine. It's just for the precaution. Okay, listen carefully. Are you right by him now?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so listen carefully. Lay him flat on his back on the floor and remove any pillows.
I don't want to do.
Okay, so is he flat on his back now?
Yeah, he's on the floor.
Okay.
Start CPR.
Okay.
Please, come on, darling. 4, 5, 6, 3, 4.
That's it. Keep going with those compressions.
You're doing abdominal breathing.
Okay, so keep going with those compressions. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. That's it. Keep going. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2,
I can't count with you, please.
but keep going with those compressions.
Please, darling, please, Dave. They'll have to bang really loud on the front door.
On the what door, sorry?
They'll have to bang really loud on the front door. It's a big house.
Right, okay.
He's going.
So keep going with those compressions. You're doing really well. You have to keep going. You're doing really well.
Come on, darling, come on. Take it away.
But you're doing really well. Keep going with those compressions. Is there anyone there with you at all?
No, it's me.
Okay. But you're doing really well. Keep going. And what was the patient's name?
Dave Horler. Please tell me how long are we going? Please tell me how long are we going? Hello?
So keep going with those compressions. What's happening?
Can you tell me how long I've been going?
So you've been doing it for... Bear with me. It's been 3 minutes. Keep going with those compressions. Okay, what's happening at the moment?
It's okay.
Okay. So keep going. You're doing really well.
Come on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 4, 6, 7, 8, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Come on, darling, please.
You're doing really well. Keep going.
Come on, darling, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. You stop the abdominal breathing now.
Okay, is he breathing?
No.
So to keep going with those compressions. You're doing really well.
Come on, darling, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. How far is the ambulance?
I don't know where the ambulance is coming from. I don't dispatch them myself, but it's being arranged as an emergency. They will be with you as soon as they can. Keep going with those compressions until they can take over. Okay, you're doing really, really well.
Operator!
What's happening at the moment? Hello?
Breathing. I couldn't feel it. And when I came on the floor, he was breathing. And of course I said, I couldn't get enough. Carry on for me.
So what's happening? Okay, I'll leave you with them. Bye-bye.
So that was our story. I don't know why I woke up. I don't know if I heard something. I don't know if I sensed something. You know, I'd been drinking the night before. I was a bit drunk. I don't know. But when I woke up, I tried moving Dave and I couldn't move him, and he was just like a lump in the bed. And when I put the light on, you know, I've been to recesses before. I just put the bedroom light on, and I just knew from looking at him, from his neck up, he was purple. His eyes were in the back of his head, and he was agonal breathing. Obviously, agonal breathing is without breath. He wasn't actually breathing, but it was agonal breathing. Yeah, and it was just the two of us. Hardest thing I've ever done. You know, I've done loads of recesses over the years, in hospital, out of hospital. Some I've got back, most I haven't. Very, very different when it's somebody you love who's in bed next to you. And, you know, it's 8 minutes, that call. 8 minutes, but that's the longest 8 minutes of my life. When it's just the two of you. And I was tired, you know, I was absolutely exhausted. For me, what happened afterwards, every night I go to bed, it's the last thing I think of when I wake up in the middle of the night. That's the first thing I think of. It's hard, really hard. I knackered my rotator cuff doing it. I've torn my arm doing it. He's a big bloke, you know. You got to do those chest compressions, but we did it. Crew turned up. I have to apologise. When they turned up, neither of us were wearing a stitch of clothing. And yeah, my mum was like, well, why didn't you put anything on? You know, tunnel vision. You just not a stitch of clothing. Open the front door. You know, upstairs in my bedroom. You know, not a stitch. So I am dressed today. What happened after that? Well, obviously the guys here can tell you what happened. They remember that much better than I do. But speaking to them today, Dave required 3 shocks. He was in VF. The adrenaline and the amiodarone. He got spontaneous circulation in the bedroom. They managed to get him out, get him down. And when we got him onto the front driveway or down the stairs, he started taking breaths for himself. Then he vomited. Critical care team came up. They turned up on the driveway. It was too early for the helicopters. They turned up in a car, and I think they knocked him out and intubated him there and then. And then we drove to Bristol, and Ollie was trying to keep me sane all the way down while I'm trying to talk to my kids, saying, yeah, sorry, I can't see you later. I know it's Mother's Day, but you're going to stay with Daddy. And yeah, and then obviously got to the hospital, went to A&E, and then when we went to A&E, the first thing they do is take him off for a CT scan, sorry. Took him off for a CT scan, and then they were going to take him for an angiogram, and they said, we'll tell you the results later. Took him 5 hours to tell me if he was brain damaged. And then what happened, they took him off to ITU, and I'm just sat there not knowing, nobody speaks to me. By the time I got to see him in ITU, that's what I saw. So we'd gone home, we'd been at home, sorry, from the bedroom floor, and as I say, this is now kind of getting on for 5 o'clock in the afternoon. They told me that they couldn't find any damage on the CT scan, but apparently after cardiac arrest with the cardiac standstill, that can take up to 72 hours to present itself. So what they did was this machine here, they're cooling him down. Therapeutic hypothermia. They were going to cool his body down to 35 to give his brain a rest, to give him the best possible chance. They couldn't tell me what the outcome was going to be, whether, you know, was he going to be all right. They couldn't tell me. We just had to sit and wait. And I was the one that had to ring Dave's mum and tell her. She was in Spain. I had to ring his work to say he wasn't going out the next day. I'm trying to hold it together, you know, do all those normal things, and I'm sat with this. Every light you see here is something going into him. I think at one point he had 13 infusions set up. Obviously he's on a ventilator, he's intubated. Yeah, tough day, really tough day. So that was Mother's Day. Never going to forget that one. The next day was my mum's 65th birthday. We were all meant to be going out for a massive birthday celebration, taking my mum out. That's what I sat with. In the first 2 weeks of Dave being in hospital, I lost 2 stone, and I got less than 10 hours sleep in the first 2 weeks. So Monday afternoon, I went in, no change really. They were still cooling him down. And I have to say the staff in ITU were really, really good. You can see they got him down to 35 by then. They were really good. They taught me through the process, obviously, and they keep a little diary where the staff write in this little diary and tell Dave what's going on and what's happening and people that meet him. And I was encouraged to write a diary as well, so that when he came around he could, you know, understand how I felt, what I'd been through. Dave didn't want that book. I got it. It's in the boot of my car. I haven't got the guts to open it. I haven't even looked at it since we come out of hospital, and every time it falls out of bag in the boot of my car I go cold. At some point I will open it, but it's only been 6 months and it's still very, very real. So that was the Monday. Tuesday, you know, we're a couple of days. These are really long days to me. I pretty much moved into ITU. They were ever so good. The fact that they knew I was a paramedic, the fact they knew I was a resus officer, they were more than happy to have me around. I never interfered with what they did. I just found it fascinating. I learned so much, and I had to know, I had to understand. Every time a machine went off, I had to know what was going on. But one thing I will say is throughout this whole process, even though Dave was really sedated, when I was sat with him, I held his hand the whole time I was there, and I was convinced I felt movement. Absolutely convinced. And I was told by the doctors there was no way you'd feel any movement. He's too far under. But every time I left the room, his obs altered. If I went for a pee, if I went for a cup of tea, his obs altered. The amount of times the staff came down to the coffee lounge and said, "You need to come back. His BP's going through the roof." So I just sat with him because he knew I was there. I sensed he knew I was there, and as soon as I left the room, all his physical observations were showing that he was scared, he was frightened. Wednesday the 14th, no change, because he hadn't moved, because he hadn't been up out of bed walking. They put these little inflatable pads on his legs because his muscles were starting to waste away. They were talking about waking him up, but they had tried to wake him up during the night and they couldn't because he got so agitated. They tried doing it when I went home, and they said, "We're not going to do it until you're here." So I had chats with the ITU consultant. I agreed to stay with Dave. I wanted to stay with him. Dave's mum wanted me to stay with him, and I agreed to sit through the whole process and talk him off the ventilator. And if you've ever talked somebody off a ventilator, that's hard because they wake up absolutely terrified. But as soon as I left the room, he'd get agitated again. They didn't want to set him under again, so I had to sit with him and talk him through it, which was it was a tough day, a really tough day. But then what happened? Well, ITU were busy that day, and we were in an isolation room because they had some horrible bug going around ITU. And as Dave was waking up, as I was kind of talking him through the process, they had to hand some bloods over, so they had to go out of a double door system. So the nurse said, "I'm just going to literally go to the other door, hand the bloods over, I will be back, if you want anything there's the bell there." And Dave kept looking at me. He was now kind of a bit aware of what was going on. He started to wake up, still on the ventilator. She went through the first door and we were in a soundproofed room. She went through the second door and Dave looked at her, looked at me, and tried extubating himself. You git. Yeah, so I'm there on my own. The bell's over there. It took all my effort to literally jump on the bed, hold him down, scream for the nurse to come, and I made the nurse extubate him. There were no doctors there, it was just me and the nurse. She was like, I've never done it before, and I was like, you just gotta get a syringe and, extubate him. So me and the nurse did it by ourselves. Obviously, Dave was pretty shattered after that. By the time the tea walked to him, we'd done everything. He was extubated, he was sat there, he felt a whole lot better, and we'd done it all by ourselves. But it was pretty knackering for Dave. Thursday was Katie's birthday. She was 9 Thursday, and that was the first day I went home. I left the hospital, that was what I sat with. They got Dave out onto a chair. He looked like he'd had a stroke. He kept leaning. I kept saying, sit up, you're going to stick like that. But he was very listless and could barely talk. He'd had a tube down for a few days. When I left him at 5 o'clock, really tired, and they put him back into bed. So the deal was I was going to go home and see Katie. It was her birthday, and I'd come in the next day. I'd just go spend a little bit of time with the kids. So I left at 5. By 7:30, Dave was so agitated, so distressed that I wasn't there. I got my phone to take photos of Katie, and all I had was missed call, and ITU were ringing me up saying, if you don't get back down here, we've got to put him back under again. So I left my daughter with my mother and got in the car, and then proceeded to move into BRI again. When I managed to speak to Dave on his phone, put his phone on his chest on loudspeaker, and I spoke to him the whole way down, telling him I was going to be there, calm down, not going to be long. I parked at the hospital, I'm walking in. And then as soon as I walked in, he was happy. He was happy, really happy. And yeah. And then he asked me.
Nobody to talk to.
No. Then he did ask me to marry him, but he forgot about that. He asked me twice, and he's forgotten about that. Memory loss is a good excuse, isn't it? So that was.
I was under the influence of lots of different drugs.
So that was a Thursday. Friday we got moved to coronary care. We made a little video. Dave actually did a first record. It's the first time he really spoke because he wanted to tell everyone what happened, but remarkable recovery. From coronary care, Dave got moved to cardiology. We stayed in cardiology for another 3 weeks really. Dave had to go for surgery to have a subcutaneous ICD. Now, hypertrophic cardiomyopathy is pretty rare, and what they knew he needed a defib, but what they didn't want to do was actually put a pacemaker or defibrillator up here, because then it's got to go into the heart muscle, and they wanted to save his heart because he's got to have this device changed every 5 years. So they decided to go for a subcutaneous one, so it's actually in his back. It's about the size of the palm of your hand really. It's a little battery pack, and what they did was they put the wire just under the ribs really. It's not in the heart, it's completely non-invasive. The wire sits, it's quite a thick wire, and obviously if his heart rate goes above 140 it will fire off. Okay, so he's got to go back every 5 years to have that changed. And that's where we were really. It took so long to have that surgery because there's only 2 consultants that could do it at Bristol. It's such a rare procedure. I think Bristol have only done 200 of them. And then we went home, and we're here today. What's happened since then? Well, Dave's gone back to work. We went back to work in May. Went back travelling again in June. It's just a bit annoying now because you can't go through the scanners, can you? You have to.
Yeah. There's 2 scanners in Heathrow. There's a magnetic field one, and there's a body scanner. I have to bypass the magnetic field, but I can go into the body scanner. So just explaining yourself to the. I've got a little passport, little medical passport. I have to show the customs officials. Take the shoes and belt off, and then I have to walk through and use either the body scanner or be hand searched every time I go through.
And that's it really. That's probably the only reminder you get, isn't it? And the fact you've got to take one bisoprolol every morning. I don't even know if he needs a bisoprolol, to be honest with you.
I forgot the other day.
See? Oh, God. You tell me now.
I felt fine though. I felt fine.
He's on the bisoprolol. Only reason being to keep his blood pressure stable and to keep his pulse below 140. If his pulse goes above 140, the defib will kick off. If the defib kicks off, he can't drive for another 6 months. Is it going to happen again? They can't say. The likelihood is yes. That's why he's got a defib. What's the lasting damage? I mean, I think Dave has a little bit of memory loss. Not that he would admit that, because he says you can't remember what is it? You don't know what you can't remember. That's the line you keep using to me. And obviously now the stories are blurring. What have I told him? What did he remember? But there's some things that I've noticed, but I don't think anyone else would notice if you didn't know you as well as I do. So that's us really. Yeah, that's where we are. So in June we got invited to go to Basildon Cardiothoracic Centre, where they were trying to get the most number of cardiac arrest survivors in the room at one time. They got 127 cardiac arrest survivors there, and they got a world record. Yay! So it's got a world record. How amazing is that? So it's done that. We're both on a forum on Facebook called Sudden Cardiac Arrest UK, who've been really good and really supportive. But yeah, it's a long hard journey really, and we've come a long way. But that was in June of this year, and they hope to do a regular thing maybe every 5 years or so, and see if they can get more and more people there. It's about getting that message out there. It doesn't matter if your CPR aren't that good, you just got to do what you can. Do something. Doing something's better than nothing. And that was us a couple of weeks ago. So thanks for listening. That's our story. If you have got any questions, otherwise it's over to the guys.